Let's see. Hello, folks. Hello. We're gonna proofread some stuff today. Let's see. It felt like quite an escape to leave the ancestral home and see the world beyond the real world, as a lot of people say. I suppose I lived the opposite of a dream of most girls. Most girls want to escape the mundane world and live in some fairy tale castle. The problem's there. They helped us. Wait, what? It was in a castle. It was a castle that I was born. I was born in a castle. It was in a castle I was born. I was born in a castle, yeah. In a castle. The ancestral home of my family. The Keldar Castle. It was located back in my native land, sitting in a rural part of Balkan Europe, away from the troubles of the recent Yugoslav wars, but a little too close to Russia, our neighbor, but bordering Russia. Away from the troubles of the recent Yugoslavs, but bordering Russia. But it bordered Russia. Let's see, what's the term? Western, Eastern. Our eastern neighbor who we had a long love-hate relationship with. They helped us in our fight against the Ottomans. Usually in the Balkans they say Ottomans, not Ottoman Empire. They also made us their economic puppet for a few centuries. Then they made us their economic puppet for a few centuries. The Russians liberated us from Nazi rule. Then they installed a communist puppet state that was in power for 40 years. And the fall of communism in our land was a bit bloodier than it was in some other states. And many of the communists in charge just changed parties and party name. Many of the communists just changed parties and stayed in power. Yeah, that's consistent. Things were looking better for the country in 20 years since the revolution. Well, I should hope things would look better after 20 years. That's a generation. It's not like the Middle Ages where things stay shitty for 100 years or 200 years and then things might improve in 10 generations? Let's see. 20 years since the revolution. More people had access to healthcare. More people were literate. Old superstitions and prejudices were dying, though not eradicated. Young women were going to university for the first time instead of staying home and being kitchen-bound mothers. It seemed to me like our land was stuck in a time bubble for the past 30 years. 30 years? 40 years? It was the 2000s now. It was like our country was just entering the 1960s. When they're doing things unheard of a generation earlier. When doing jobs that only men had before. Let's see. I went to university to become a journalist. I wanted to go around the world and see all I missed after those many years cooped up at the castle after my mother's death. Is that the right cooped? No. I'll have to check. Thanks, Google Word. I assume it's right because coop means cage, so cooped up would mean caged. I was a popular girl on campus. I inherited my mother's beauty and her natural charisma. People were also intrigued by my background. Most people at the university, don't need to say capital. At the university, never met someone who lived in a castle or was the heir to a title, the Duke of Keldar. Though I would be a duchess, naturally. Let's see. You shouldn't be afraid to write from female or male perspective if you're a writer, because it's gonna be kind of a short and clumsy story if you only write from your gender. Let's see. Unless you do a story that's pretty monogendered, like a war story. I've seen a lot of war stories that only had like 1 or 2 women in. Almost like that movie The Thing that only had a female voice on a computer and that was it. Let's see. I was named after Glera of Keldar, an illustrious ancestor. Illustrious. Recognized, celebrated, memorable ancestor of the bloodline who was rumored to have magical powers. Powers or not, she was not immortal and died in her 30s, barely 10 years older than I was in the present. Perhaps magic wears you out, or perhaps she had bad luck to be born in a time when doctors thought that washing your hands before an operation was unmasculine. Yeah, gets a new paragraph. Medicine was still a bit backwards even in our modern nation. I often wondered if Mother might have survived if she was treated at a Western hospital instead of a local place, instead of an Eastern one, instead of locally. Yeah. Be concise, eliminate words. But you can still have words. There was some French writer, he was very wordy. Pretty much everything now, every character just made a speech instead of going back and forth. It was funny. It was very strange. Maybe it sounds better in French like that, I don't know. The differences between languages are pretty big sometimes. Let's see, my surprise history at a Western hospital. She did die at the finest hospital in the nation. Perhaps she was beyond saving. I'm just glad she didn't die at that dark castle, which was home to enough bad memories for me as is. I was born in that castle, the first daughter of the Duke Keldar. He had been hoping for a son. They tried to have another with Mother. I had tried to have another child with Mother. It didn't work out. It seemed that Glera Keldar, aka moi, would be the only heir of the Duke Keldar. That mean old bastard was stuck with me. Not that I wanted to ever go back to that castle. Let's see. Moi. She sounds like Miss Piggy there. She always uses moi when she talks. It was time for spring break, and I was planning on going on a trip to the countryside with my 2 friends, Belle and Dominique. I'll have to check if I called her Bella. You know, Bella and Bellique, that's... Bella and Belle, that's, very similar names. I think Bella might be Spanish for beautiful. I'm not sure. Belle is French for beautiful, and, Spanish and French... There's some similarities. Similar words. They were both kind, spirited girls who did what they wanted. In short, girls that my father and the old government hated. Maybe instead of going to the countryside, we should go to Glera's castle. Bella had suggested as we walked through the park in the center of the university. A park that nobody was allowed to call one for some reason. It's not my castle, I replied uneasily. Not yet, but it will be someday, Belle nodded. As long as the world doesn't end. Why would you want to go to my family's castle? Asked Belle. Belle shrugged. I've never been to a castle before, Belle said. They're like houses, but made of stone, and they get real cold in the winter. Really cold in the winter. Belle still looked enthused to go. It'll be neat, I think, Belle said. Dominique finally spoke up then. Belle, you grew up in a mansion. What's the difference between that and a castle? Dominique asked. It's a world of difference, Belle protested. Castles are so big and full of history. The place I grew up has no history. Nobody even died there. Let's see. The place can't be interesting unless people die there, I thought. Dominique laughed. Figures that a history major would want to stay in a castle just because it's old, she said. Guys, this is a setup. This is like the setup for some old horror movie, I protested. We go there, we're going to get chased down by some maniac with a giant pair of scissors. My favorite video game, Dominique exclaimed. If your castle's like the place in Clock Tower, I definitely want to go. It's not, I reassured. There's no part of it that looks cool as anything from a video game. Dominique muttered. Yeah, Clock Tower. That's kind of part of an inspiration, I guess, but not that much. Just as about girls going to a castle, a strange location. Clock Tower was inspired by a movie called Phenomenon. It's an old Italian horror movie with Donald Pleasance and a girl who has the ability to control bugs and make them do her bidding. And it's a very good movie. You should watch it if you can find it. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon Prime. It's from the 80s and stars... What's the name of that girl? It begins with J. Jennifer? I'm not sure. She's a famous star, though. It's not. There's no part of it. Let's see. I remembered that I showed Dominique and Belle pictures of the castle. It was a big and black, mostly box. It was big and black. It was big and black, mostly box-shaped, without any cool geography, like great towers or stony catwalks or archways on the exterior. It was designed very practically by whoever built it all those years ago. It was set on a very solid stony hill and surrounded by woods that up till the 1940s had been infested by vicious wolves. Let's see. The wolves of Keldar Woods terrified generations of children in the nearby village of Caldrum. People believed they were smarter than normal wolves because they were possessed by evil spirits. I like those pictures you gave me, Dominique said to me. Good thing they were in color. The castle would be quite hard to see if it was black and white. Yeah, just a black blob surrounded by black trees and woods, I noted. Oh boy. Another stupid mail truck. It's so annoying, these mail trucks constantly coming in and going. Wish they'd deliver the packages a little later, you know, like when the mail truck gets here. Really? Alright, where was I? Black blob surrounded by black trees and woods. Belle clapped her hands. I think I'd like to do my history thesis on your home, Clara. I'd like to do my history thesis on your home, Clara. I said, really, I asked, feeling a little flattered for the first time. Belle shook her head spiritedly. Indeed, she said, because you're an expert on the castle, you can help me. I know about half of its secrets, I admitted with a smile. My father knows the rest of them. Then maybe I should talk to him, Belle smirked. You really don't want to talk to him, I replied. Trust me. Picture a meeting with Count Dracula when he's having a bad day. That's my father on a good day. Well, I remember you told me once about... I remember what you told me. You told me about your mother. remember what you told me about your mother, Belle said. Maybe that's why he's so gloomy and Byronic. My father, the Byronic hero, I thought instantly. I thought the Bionic Man was a cyborg. Oh, you're talking about Lord Byron. Yeah. It's a different thing altogether. That's one thing I like about modern day settings, is that I can use my extensive pop culture knowledge for once. Can't really do that in the story from 1940. Oh my god, talk about Noel Coward or Bogart? I don't know. Who else is there? Generally don't know any musicians from that era. Let's see. I'm sure you know enough to give me a paper's worth of material, Glara, Belle said. Let's see, is that the right girl? Yes, that's the right girl. I don't need to write a book for a thesis. I think 10 pages is enough. I don't need to write a book for a thesis. I think 10 pages is enough. 10 pages. 10 pages, I smelled. Yeah, you'll definitely have enough material. I made no commitment to my friends that day. When I got back to my dormitory, I found a letter from Father awaited me. Father with an F. Capital F. It was an old envelope with a red wax seal on it depicting the family crest. The family crest had a knight's helm and a sword and a great hissing snake viper wrapped around it. I need to clarify this. The knight, it's wrapped around the sword, not the helm. A helm is what you call a knight's helmet. Of course, you could also just call it a helmet. When I think of knight's helm, I picture that weird bird beak-headed knight helmet that you see very rarely. I kind of like those, though. I think I'd like one of those from my face because, you know, you could use that as another weapon if you were in a pinch. Probably poke someone's eye out with that. And also those things on the shoes. The pointy things that they had on some of the shoes that they could, like, get a guy good in the knee or leg if they had to. It's pretty smart turning every part of your body into a weapon, right? Let's see. On the banner below the helm and sword was the family motto in Latin. Provocent temperat. Provoke us cautiously. I considered inviting my friends over to regard this spooky old envelope. I knew what Bella or Dominique would say, that it looked like a letter of invitation to Dracula's castle. I wondered if there was someone out there so foolish that they'd go to Castle Dracula, even after finding out what he was. To me, going back to Father's castle would be the equivalent of that. And that was what I imagined the letter wanted me to do. I broke the seal and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter made in Father's trademark, delicate, spidery handwriting. The man had penmanship like some Gothic novelist. Meanwhile, I had penmanship like a gorilla who stole the zookeeper's pen. The letter was simple, a request to come and visit over the spring break. There were some practical matters to discuss, such as Father's stocks in the West, and how the family's money would be managed when he was gone. Father wanted me to have financial security. I suppose that's the one thing I had over a lot of people. I felt guilty about it, wishing others had some blankets to protect them from ending up on the street. There were too many homeless, desperate people in the world, even in Europe. Let's see, even in Europe, is that necessary? I don't know. I mean, even in Europe, I'm trying to think straight here. Well, yeah, Europe is a lot more prosperous than most parts of the world, so it fits. It's not like she was implying that there isn't poverty, worse poverty elsewhere. It's like there's a homeless problem even in America, which is the most prosperous and wealthy country on earth. So, it stands to reason it's worse in other countries. Anyway, the letter claimed that Father wanted to make amends with me. Father apologized for various things he put me through, like what happened that night in the family crypt, or the time in the old attic. It is amazing how the events of one night could scar a person for life, or rather 2 events and 2 separate nights. Whereas if I endured more, I would have ended up becoming a serial killer. Well, not everyone traumatized by something becomes a serial killer. Some of us become almost normal people. Okay, we're 21 minutes in, signing off here. I'm continuing reading on my own. Have a nice day.